Hey, my handsome ladies and gentlemen, this is Shmeaty. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. I was playing the Ultra League Summer Cup and got really sick and tired really quickly of seeing bellibolt and virizion on the same team. If you've had the same problem in this cup, worry not, my esteemed viewer, I've got just the solution for you, and that Pokemon is named Turtonator. Unfortunately, Turtonator is a heavily excelled Pokemon. When it comes to building it for the Ultra League, it does need to be around level 50, and as you can see here, mine is 2417. I am not even nearly close to level 50ing it, but despite that, this Pokemon is still very, very good into the Ultra League Summer Cup meta, at least when every single person wants to run this D-Gen Frog alongside with Virizion. Me ranting aside, we've got Shadow Cradily up against the D-Gen Frog, and although Shadow Cradily does resist electric, you're going to see me shield up that first parabolic charge, and the reason being is because I am a Rock Tomb user. So I do know that my Rock Tomb will lower future parabolic charges from doing any more meaningful damage. They are going to go for parabolic charge number 2, and I'm going to fire off a Grass Knot, hoping to pick up the KO onto the now double boosted bellibolt. Grass Knot is fortunately going to be enough to knock out, and oh my goodness, what a visionary! My opponent looking to revolutionize the meta with their bellibolt Virizion core. I'm going to fire off the Rock Tomb, then safe switch into my Kingdra, and Kingdra is now very comfortable with no shielding a potential Sacred Sword or Leaf Blade. I'm not sure if they are on Stone Edge and that's why they're going for Sacred Sword, but Leaf Blade is actually a better move to go for than Sacred Sword in neutral situations. Looks like Kingdra is looking to commit to the farm down, realize we are not going to be able to get it, so I'm going to have to fire off a last second Octazooka. Octazooka picks up the knockout, and now they've only got one Pokemon remaining, and there's a 50-50 chance this game just gets a lot easier from here. We're going for the Octazooka. Octazooka onto the Feraligatr. -2 goes the Feraligatr, and no matter what they throw here, especially if they throw an alignment, it is not nearly going to be impactful enough to win them this game. Hydra Cannon, laughable damage onto the Turtonator, and Turtonator is looking to retaliate with an Outrage. Outrage onto the Feraligatr, forcing this shield. I don't know why this trainer is still playing this match out. However, another Hydra Cannon is going to be thrown. Both Hydra Cannon and Ice Beam are neutral here, so of course they're going to go for the more efficient move, which is Hydra Cannon. Hydra Cannon number 3, finally going to be enough to KO the Turtonator. I'm going for the Elam Trick, making sure I don't get one turn bring in here, as I may crash out if I do. They are going to be able to reach a move versus the Cradily, but with the acid that just sneaked, this game is going to fortunately be a win. GG's to this trainer. You know what else is really cool about Turtonator? The fact that it is a double resistance to Incinerate, and a lot of people like their Incinerate Skeleturge in this meta. This Skeleturge is opting for Incinerate. I've seen about 50-50 on Hex and Incinerate. This one is going to be able to fire off a move, but what are they going to do? No matter what they throw there, I am not going to be able to get farmed down, so I'm going to build up, fire off the Outrage. Now look to see what the Skeleturge's reaction is. They are going to shield up the Outrage, because what else can they do? I'm bringing in the Kingdra. Kingdra may actually want to shield this move up, but we call the Torch Song bait. Oh my goodness, in comes Leavanny. Leavanny very quickly pacing, and I think unfortunately they're probably going to be able to make 2 moves before I make my 1. I'm not able to make the Outrage that would potentiate a KO up against the Leavanny before they make their Leaf Blade number 2. That is pretty embarrassing stuff. However, since they threw as soon as they got the move, they were then 5 away, which means 2 Incinerates will be able to pick up the knockout. My opponent switches back into the Skeleturge. Sir, how weak to the Fire Turtle are you? We're going to build up and bank another Dragon Pulse for later. I am going to... Was that Dragon Pulse or Outrage? I actually don't even know, dude, to be completely honest with you. In comes a Greninja, and this should just be a win. I'm going to be able to no-shield a Night Slash here. They're likely going to go for the Night Slash bait. They get the boost. That has made this position not a good one at all. I am going to now have to shield up this move, as a Night Slash could potentially put me into a range where I could get Water Shuriken down. I'm looking to fire off the Rock Tomb with my Cradily here, and now Rock Tomb going to be shielded by the Greninja. I'm going to fire off 3, switch into the Turtonator, and who would have thought that in order to stay into this game, we had to sack the Turtonator, but now they don't have any shields left on the Greninja, over farming with the Credilli as they bring back in the Skeledirge in an attempt to catch the move and then try to outpace with the Greninja later, but Greninja's going to be met with a Grass Knot, and that means this game is over. Grass Knot more than enough to KO the double boosting Greninja. Get that off my screen. Okay, a little bit of a case of not good, not bad in the next game. It is going to be Turtonator leading into Shadow Feraligatr. Realistically, this is probably way worse than I'm selling it out to be, but I am going to safe switch into my Kingdra, hoping to catch a Hydro Cannon that was thrown on alignment, but this trainer holds onto their energy, fires off the Ice Beam, and that does a sizable chunk onto my Kingdra. They're going to be able to reach a last-second move here. I think I might just live this Hydro Cannon. I'm actually not going to risk it. I'm shielding up the Hydro Cannon, and in comes a Talonflame. Are we okay here? Why is Talonflame being brought into a Kingdra up so much energy? They get Octazooka debuff. They are never going to farm down the Kingdra, forced to throw their energy immediately. And now, this is a very different game. They're going to fire off the Flame Charge. Although double resisted, of course, that's going to be enough to KO the Kingdra. I'm going to fire off 2 more Incinerates, look to fire off the Dragon Pulse, but I did not factor in the fact that this is going to be CMP. Given that the Talonflame is at a net of -1 here, they did Flame Charge to boost their attack by 1 stage, but it was lowered by 2 stages by the Kingdra. I am going to no-shield the Fly. Now they bring back in the Feraligatr. Feraligatr farming up a lot of energy here. However, I am going to look to call a Hydro Cannon bait. This is very risky, but it pays off, and they don't make a second Hydro Cannon to force my next shield. That is so tremendously terrible for my opponent. What is it they decide to bring in? It's going to be Typhlosion, and Shadow Cradily literally must be in this trainer's nightmares, because how will they ever beat this Shadow Cradily from this range? We're going to be able to fire off 4 acids. Right before the Incinerate registers, we can fire off a Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb picks up the one-shot on the non-Shadow Typhlosion. Back in comes the Talonflame, and we are going for the full Overheat Zero Bubble. It KOs the Talonflame. GG's to this trainer. I must be dreaming, because in the next match, it's going to be Turtonator leading into a Roserade. What is Roserade doing here? Nevertheless, they are going to safe switch into their Shadow Feraligatr, going to be met with my Kingdra after I bank 2 Incinerates. They're going to fire off what could be an Ice Beam here, and I'm shielding this every single time, because if I get this shield correct, I am so far ahead in this matchup. Look at the health on that Feraligatr before they're able to make another Ice Beam. I'm going to be able to fire off this Octazooka to pressure a shield off of the Feraligatr. The Feraligatr shields it up, and now this game just got so much easier, because with that Octazooka debuff, I can no-shield the Ice Beam that does pitiful damage, and we're going to look to farm down the Feraligatr, leaving with energy. And what is it they decide to bring back in? It's going to be the Roserade. Roserade going to be on Poison Sting most likely, so I'm going to look to commit to only an Outrage here, because I don't care about the debuff. What is the Roserade going to do to the Turtonator? They are going to look to throw a couple more fast moves, hoping that they can bank some energy for later and maybe make some use out of it in the end game. Unfortunately for them, that is just not a possibility, as they hard pivot into the Gastrodon, and I'm going to overfarm so very much here, and now fire off a Grass Knot onto the Gastrodon. You know what? This is very deserved. Every Gastrodon player deserves getting Grass Knotted, especially when they bring back in the Roserade. I play to the losing CMP, firing off a Grass Knot bait. I'm going for the Overheat. I'm not shielding this move. And now they're going to fire off a Weather Ball Fire, double resisted by the Fire and Dragon typing on Turtonator. It looks like I'm swiping away from the bubbles there. The Zero Bubble Overheat KOs the Roserade to absolutely no one's surprise. GG's. Another good looking lead up against a Skeledirge, and of course they're going to be on Incinerate as they immediately pivot out into their Feraligatr. I make a massive misplay and play into my opponent's mistake here as they fire off the Hydro Cannon on CMP. This is very unfortunate for me, because I could have either gotten another Incinerate for free or switched into either of my back 2 Pokemon and caught the Hydro Cannon, where it would be a lot less impactful. They are going to fire off some energy onto my Kingdra. They make a literal 1 HP Ice Beam, and unfortunately that gets me well below half. And it would appear this trainer's team is very ill prepared for a Kingdra on the safe switch, as they're forced to bring back in the Skeledirge. Skeledirge is going to get double debuffed by the Octazooka. I am having insane luck. I basically need to make a left Tyrando video at this point. Torch Song is no shielded, and now they're going to bring in a Swampert in the back. But the Turtonator switch is going to force them to throw energy, because the threat of a potential Dragon Pulse is too much, and they cannot afford to go down their second shield. In comes the Kingdra, looking to just fire off the Octazooka, looking for a debuff. No debuff is applied that time, but this game is still very much over. This trainer is going to look to play it out. I am going to shield early here, as, of course, from this range, I can just fire off Rock Tombs at the Swampert, and it will KO. You're going to see me continue to fire off Acids well past the point where I get the move, and that's very intentional. The reason for that is because I'm employing a strategy that I like to call keeping energy here, and I see that a lot of people don't oftentimes talk about this, but keeping energy is very important. As you can see, since I kept energy, I can force the shield onto the Skeledirge well before it's able to fire off moves at me, and I'm a no shield Cradley, so keeping energy is very important. Keeping track of their energy also going to be important. As you're going to be able to see, I fire off another Rock Tomb before they're able to make another Torch Song, and that makes all the difference, because Swampert comes in only to be met with a Grass Knot, not enough residual energy. Down goes Swampert, GG's. Getting into the next one, it's going to be Turtonator leading into Virizion, exactly the Pokemon that we were hunting, at least one of the two. They are going to switch into Typhlosion. What is happening? Typhlosion, I'm not sure if they're aware, but their bait move is resisted, their nuke move is double resisted. I'm firing off the Dragon Pulse, massive damage onto the non-shadow Typhlosion. They're going to fire off a move here. What is it? No matter what it is, it's going to be heavily resisted. The Thunder Punch not doing any damage onto the bulky turtle. They are going to fire off another move here. This is enough for a Blast Burn, but as you're going to see, the Blast Burn gets us just below half health, and we incinerate down, winning the zero shield scenario and leaving with 100 energy. This trainer is forced to top left. In the next match, Turtonator leading into a Skeledirge, and this isn't cherry-picked at all, by the way. These are literally just a bunch of consecutive games, as we're going to see. This is actually a Skeledirge that's on Hex. It takes 5 Hexes to get to a Shadow Ball, and they throw on 6, which is good timing, at least about as good timing as they're going to be able to throw on. I'm going to fire off a Dragon Pulse after one more Incinerate, and probably then look to pivot out. I shielded up because I'm fairly confident that Turtonator is going to have some form of a positive matchup in the back, so I am going to shield up, switch out into my Kingdra, and speaking of a positive matchup for Turtonator, here comes their Virizion. Surprisingly, I don't care about building up to the Outrage here. I just want to land this Octazooka and potentiate a debuff, and the debuff is applied. Now we are going to unfortunately get like super duper farm down there, but in comes Turtonator, and Turtonator is here to just soak all of this double debuffed Virizion energy and make the Virizion very sad. They go for the Leaf Blade on the first, and I see what they were cooking here. They wanted me to think they were Leaf Blade Stone Edge, but they are indeed on Sacred Sword. They wanted me to shield up the next move to have me with both shields down. That's not going to happen. In comes Lapras. Lapras is going to be pretty tricky here, as it can hit my Cradily, which is my only now healthy Pokemon alive, for super effective damage relatively easily. They are going to bring back in the Skeledirge, and I'm going to no-shield their move. It's going to be the Torch Song bait, and calling that correctly leaves me in a pretty nice spot. But I'm not out of the woods yet. I'm firing off this Rock Tomb. I'm looking to get an Undercharge to maybe get a couple more Acids off. Unfortunately, my opposing trainer, keeping very good track of my energy, is going to overfarm perfectly. They are going to fire off a Torch Song. That is not going to KO, and now Cradily is going to be able to pick up the knockout with this Rock Tomb. They're really hoping that I invested my shield onto the Cradily, but I'm just not going to do that when the Lapras can hit me for super effective damage. I throw an extra Incinerate past getting the Overheat there, because as we saw in that initial Lapras versus Turtonator matchup, the Overheat did pretty underwhelming damage, and I was unsure if this was going to KO, but the Overheat will pick up the knockout onto the Lapras. Let's go, Turtonator! GG's. Getting into the next game, Turt, you can't just keep doing this to the opponent's teams. Leading into another Incinerate Skeletor, and it seems as if they're a little bit lost. Speaking of lost, I think they lost an Incinerate there. You know what? Not my problem. I'm going for the Dragon Pulse. Skeletor takes a lot of damage from it. They're going to fire back with a Shadow Ball, which will do relative amounts of damage onto me, but that's pretty fine for me. I'm just going to now bank one Incinerate worth of energy for later, then switch into the Kingdra. They are going to respond with a Sceptile. Okay, this is not a Pokemon I have seen in the Summer Cup Ultra League Edition pretty much at all. I'm going to fire off another move here, and I'm going for the Octazooka bait. Once I reach my Outrage, they are going to shield it up, and they get -2. You absolutely love to see it. I'm just letting go of the Kingdra here. This is probably still going to KO. No, we're actually going to shield up the Kingdra because we can get the Dragon Breath farm down, and now we're in the 1-to-1. In comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr going to be forced with making a pretty difficult decision here. Regardless of what they do, Octazooka is going to grab the shield and get the debuff. They cannot bring back in the Skeletor yet because they would be behind on energy. They are now going to fire off the Ice Beam. That doesn't do any damage onto Cradily. They're going to fire off a move, and now we can easily shield this up and overfarm as much as humanly possible up against the Skeletors. Can we get the Acid farm down? We cannot. I'm not going to risk it. I think they would live on 1 HP there. A Rock Tomb is going to connect onto the Skeletors, getting the KO. We are 2 away from the Grass Knot, and although it's a non-shadow Feraligatr, this Grass Knot will easily be enough to KO. GG's to this trainer. Turtonator, you have to be stopped. These trainers have families. Did we lose a lead in this video? Nevertheless, Turtonator leading into Ferrothorn, probably the best lead we've seen all video. They are going to safe switch into an Incinerate Skeletor, and Trainer, I am so sorry, but you're getting outpaced. That is an effective 16 turns into our 15 turns of 3 Incinerates, and so they are going to get outpaced. We grab the shield, then switch into our Kingdra. They're going to fire off a Shadow Ball on 3, 2 more Incinerates, and they're going to fire off immediately here, hoping to fire off a move before we get our Octazooka. That was only a Torch Song. Torch Song is not going to be enough to KO. I'm not shielding it, and now I'm firing off the Octazooka. It gets the debuff, so Skeletor unable to KO and loses both shields, and they don't even keep switch advantage. I am going to overthink this a little bit, bring in Cradily, and they bring in Ferrothorn. That is really bad for me. I was really hoping to avoid having my Turtonator on the back Pokemon here, but because of that mid-game matchup, we are at such an overwhelming advantage here that this Dragon Pulse does more than half onto the Tentacruel. Okay, it only brought it down to about half to be completely fair, but now they fire off the Scold. That's going to get the debuff, and that matters a lot because that means this Dragon Pulse cannot KO. They're going to fire off another move. I believe this was a CMP tie. Dragon Pulse is going to CMP tie the Tentacruel, but now, regardless of if they get a debuff or not, they are getting incinerated down, and I think they're forced to aggro pivot the Ferrothorn into the Turtonator. They're fired off a Flash Cannon. It's not enough. Not nearly enough. We're looking to reach a last-second overheat there. Unfortunately, we stay in way too long. They fire off a Whip. The Whip is unfortunately going to be enough to KO. I bet if I was level 50, it probably wouldn't have. But nevertheless, bringing back in the Cradily, now firing off a Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is, of course, the better move to go for in this situation. 2 more Acids and another Rock Tomb. Cradily is an absolute menace in the Ultra League. Rock Tomb nearly KOs. 1 more Acid will do the trick. Now they bring back in the Tentacruel, or they won't because they know the game's over. GG's to this trainer. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I was actually really impressed with Turtonator's performance in the Ultra League Summer Cup. Its defensive typing is really good. It resists a lot of the common Pokemon's movesets that you're going to see. Skeletor, Typhlosion, Virizion, Bellibolt. It resists a lot of the moves from all of those Pokemon, as well as others. However, its defensive typing isn't where it stops, because Reshiram also shares the same defensive typing of Fire and Dragon. However, Reshiram, if you try to run it, is exceedingly glassy and is not going to perform as well as Turtonator does. Now, would I recommend that you build your own Turtonator? It's hard to say. It is very strong. Make no mistake about that. However, we are ending the Ultra League Summer Cup rotation in about 2 or 3 days. So this is more a video to showcase how strong this Pokemon is, because I'm understanding of the fact that not everybody's super into this rotation. I'm not even super into this rotation, to be honest. If this was the beginning of the first Ultra League Summer rotation, I'd highly recommend that you start working on building your XL Turtonators. However, it's probably not going to see very much play until if Ultra League Summer Cup comes back next year. It is not Open Ultra League viable, unfortunately, currently, because its pacing is really slow and its moveset is not the best. So, with that being said, thank you once again so much for watching. I've been Shmeaty. I hope to see you all again next time, and have a good rest of your day. See ya.